All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to PaizoLIVE, our monthly fireside chat style show where we bring our wonderful creatives on to tell you about what they're working on. I am John Morgantini, the community and social media manager.
And I'm Marissa, Paizo's web content manager, who's finally been let out of containment. On today's show, we're going to be exploring the Scoured Stars with Thurston Hillman and Jenny Jarzabski, I will get it, I swear to the gods, talking about the design philosophy of Pathfinder Monster Core with Eleanor Ferron and Logan Bonner, and then making a jump through space and time back to Jenny and Thurston for Starfinder 2nd edition.
And don't forget, we're collecting questions from the chat for our Q&A segment at the end. So if you have a question that you potentially want our creatives to answer, throw it in the chat and we'll have our moderators scoop it up.
That's okay. All right, it looks like we're live and getting started with Scoured Stars, and it sounded like Thurston has something to say to bring us in.
Oh, well, hi, everybody. No, I saw my face up on the screen. Hello, everybody. Hi, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Thurston Hillman. I am the managing creative director for Starfinder here at Paizo. And with me today is our senior developer, Jenny Jarzabski. Say hi, Jenny.
Hi, how are you, chat?
Let's give chat time to answer. They need to collect their thoughts.
Yes, we need to read.
Yep,
I need to know
see how chat's doing.
Each and every one of you are today.
Oh, right.
Did you all do stretches? You all did your stretches? Okay.
You all had your
Oh my
water?
God, stop making fun of me, Thursday.
You all have something to drink? All right, did everybody have something to drink? Everybody have their snack as we get ready to go with this PaizoLIVE?
Posture check.
Posture check. Everybody sitting up straight, shoulders back. All right. Then let's get started talking about Scoured Stars. So let's just start it real simple and easy. We are all in these teeny tiny boxes, and these teeny tiny boxes remind me of elevators. So let's hear an elevator pitch for Scoured Stars Adventure Path. 1-2 sentences. What is it about?
Wow. Okay. So the Scoured Stars Adventure Path is the next hardback book in the Starfinder First Edition line. It is an adventure path that goes from, I believe, first to about, oh gosh, I think by the end of it, that thing, you're like 17th level. Oh my gosh. It has 12 adventures, 2 of which are sort of double truck length adventures in it. And it is kind of just a mega adventure compilation built off of organized play scenarios from the first season of Starfinder Society Organized Play. Just kind of like a personal little heartfelt thing for me, because that's where I started at Paizo, was as the developer for that product line way back in the way back when machine, like, I don't know, 5 to 40 years ago. What is time? I don't know. But yeah, Scoured Stars is sort of this adventure path that is kind of the quintessential Starfinder experience. You start off as members of the Starfinder Society after something has gone horribly awry, and you are a new generation who has to step up to the plate and discover mysteries, go to dinner parties, fight strange alien creatures, and stop a god. Like all the usual
just normal things.
Fun stuff.
Yeah, exactly. A day's work, you know.
Yeah.
All right. You had mentioned that this is like a much bigger adventure than normal. What was the development process like, and how was it different from like a standard 3-volume adventure path?
Ooh, gosh. Well, so all the adventures were already pre-written, which was glorious because we were just grabbing them from back in the old days of organized play. So it was really more about taking these adventures, which were designed for organized play, and turning them into like a coherent string of adventures. Namely that, like, we had to change some levels on some of them. Organized play scenarios were meant for multiple level ranges. These, we kind of swapped them so they were all fitting to one specific level, or 2 in the case of those double trek adventures. It was also an opportunity for me to have the glorious fun task of going through our forums and reviews and reading all of the feedback that our fans gave us. Honestly, it was super fun, except for a few of you. You know the comments you made. You know what you posted. But generally, it was actually super fun to go through and then provide updates to these old adventures. Again, things that I'd started off with. In fact, Jenny was an author for one of the adventures that was in there too. As one of your, earlier org play assignments. I think it was like your second Starfinder Society assignment was one of the like last adventures in the in Scoured Stars.
Yeah, Honor Bound Emissaries. It's a
Yeah.
classic. So yeah, and it was really cool too. Thirsty did most of the development work on that, but from as other folks on the team, you know, peeping in the folder and just kind of seeing the old content brought back and just getting kind of that polish and getting put together in a coherent way all in one book is just really cool.
Oh yeah. Then, you know, we actually have some really cool art we can show off for
Ooh,
it
I love
too.
art.
Love the art.
Yeah, I'm gonna make our tech people work because they're great. But like, yeah, here it is. Look at this
Ooh.
adventure opener that we have for it. You'll see some iconic people. You'll see a couple, you know, maybe some gribbly bad guys in the background there in the form of the Jin Souls.
Like
You'll
Blades
see
for Days.
like Blades for Days. We got the Luaziel Sebo, our first Seeker. We have a mysterious Kasatha with a minigun, and then something else in the background, which maybe we'll talk about a little bit more. But then there's another one for one of the adventures in there, another piece of art, In Pursuit of the Scoured Past, gets a really fun update. You'll see there, you know, some
Oh,
Hell
no.
Knights burning some books
Not the
with a
books.
poor little Yosoki on top of them. One of the most, you know, one of the funnest things here at Paizo is when we do like any creative project as a developer, we get to order art. And so for Scoured Stars, we got to do half-page art pieces for all of the adventures. So that's 12 new half-page art pieces, which when you know you see organized play scenarios, we really don't do a lot of half-page like big illustrations. So we see like, you know, going through these adventures, we got to do chapter openers for each of them. So it was fun. One of the things you'll note that's kind of a fun side thing on this is one of the like I think only hardback or products we've released that doesn't include our iconic characters. Like you won't see, you know, Navasi, you won't see Isif. Instead, what we did was they're replaced with all of the Starfinder Society characters. So you'll see faction leaders in there. You saw with like Luwazi and you know, unnamed Kasatha, maybe important to the plot somehow. I don't know. And then you saw a Yosoki there. That's Royo, who had some humble beginnings back in the Scoured Stars era. Maybe went on to be a faction leader later in the future of Scoured Stars. So it was really cool to sort of update everything like that. Yeah, just a really good experience to go through and update those adventures.
Cool. You keep talking about how this is like an updated version of some
Mhm.
of the original organized play scenarios. What are some of the changes you've made from those original scenarios that you're excited about and want to talk to us about?
Ooh, yeah. So there's a couple. First off, some of the adventures have entirely new encounters added into them. One of the things we got to do was sort of look at some of the narrative beats that happened in the original Scoured Stars and update them. So, you know, we have a threat that shows up, maybe saw them like Blades for Days, our good friends, the Jinsels. They show up several adventures in. One of the things we got to do was sort of do some updating in terms of encounters and like better foreshadowing. We also got to do some things of including more starship combat opportunities in the adventure as well for people who enjoy that, giving people a bit more of a chance to go out in their starship and blow things up. You know, we also had an opportunity to really look at some of our early adventures and tweak them based on things that didn't exist at the time. One thing a lot of people will remember from the early days of Starfinder Society is that we didn't have these things called Starfinder flip maps. We had one or two of them when Starfinder launched. So it was really fun to go back now that we have a larger catalog of flip maps and basically, you know, go, wow, we did this like stellar observatory place, which we used, I don't know, Pathfinder Flip Map Asylum for. Maybe we can go use the solar observatory flip map that we have now. I'm doing all those sorts of updates. There were also some adventures where just like, you know what? It's been a while. We've had some you know, better understanding of our setting. We could go in and update. So some of the adventures saw some structural changes, maybe swapping out, you know, this particular encounter didn't work where it was, or maybe the information we provided wasn't entirely consistent. Gave us an opportunity to really go in and adjust all of those little fiddly items as well, and make some structural updates. There's a lot in here that's new, and there's a lot in here that's changed from the original. One example, one of my co-hosts might like might come at me with a knife later on. But we had to
For what,
swap
this
out
time?
for the commencement. We had to swap out a junk race that was in the original commencement, because we actually had a different encounter that was in another adventure that thematically fit better in and did better foreshadowing. So we got to swap out some things and really make it like a bit more holistic in what the adventure was. So it was really exciting to go in and do that, and also make a bunch of changes that really made everything more cohesive, just as like a consistent story rather than rather than just the sort of scattered organized play scenarios, which people, play at their local game stores and get that meta plot from. But in this case, it was our chance to really turn it into what our adventure paths are, in a consistent story you're playing with your friends.
Cool. I'm going to throw it over to Jenny for one more question. Thurston's been talking about a lot of new things. Are there some new things that you've snuck in that you want to share with us?
There are. So for those of you who are longtime Society players, or who have played since, you might remember in Honor-Bound Emissaries, which is the adventure of mine that is in that anthology of the Scoured Stars, you might remember that we introduced this federation called the Cryhome Freehold that had a bunch of new species that had never been encountered ever before anywhere else in the Pact Worlds. And these were sort of promissory notes that we threw out of like, here's some really cool, species that you could play as. You could make these alien characters, but we didn't include stats for them because obviously it was an organized play scenario and we didn't have the support and room for that. But in the months and years since, several of them did get their Alien Archive entry and they got their time in the spotlight. But there were a few who had still languished in shadow and been forgotten. But the final baby is going to be brought into the spotlight. So there's going to be some more Cryhome Freehold goodness and some new playable species stuff for your Starfinder 1 campaigns.
It was a bingo for all of those species. Like, we're like, all right, Alien Archive 2, we got one. Back matter of this AP, we got one. And then by the end, I'm outlining this book, and I'm like, we haven't done the coral mermaid people.
Yeah, the coral
probably do.
Seahorse mermaid people. Yeah.
And so this was a fun opportunity for us to sneak that in. I know that was like last question, but how about we talk about some art? Speaking of things we've snuck in.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, let's go on a big old art display here, everybody.
Yes.
A tour, if you will, of art. Let's start off with the first thing, the Tier Relic, which is an object that many people who've played the Scoured Stars will know is kind of an important object that shows up. One of the cool things we got to do with the revision was stat it out as an artifact. In fact, several artifacts, because people who've played know that there are maybe a couple of these relics kicking about, and each of them have different effects, and you can actually benefit from them in your campaign. So
we
it's
didn't
really
have
neat.
Oh, sorry, Thirsty to interrupt. We didn't have art before for that, did we? This is the first depiction we've had of it. Yeah, so that's really cool.
Yeah, and again, we have different variants of it throughout the entire adventure. Like we talk about how there were, a few of them, and where some of them are, and maybe some we haven't heard of before, and really giving a bit of extra lore to that element. The classic commencement item, the Society Subdermal Graft, makes an appearance. That's a little augmentation that Starfinders get that kind of lets other people know they're Starfinders. We got to stat that thing out, put it in an official book instead of, in the first org play scenario where maybe not everyone could easily access it. We also had a really fun opportunity to maybe look at some old art pieces that didn't turn out quite as we were hoping, or were in sort of a prior art style. I think my personal favorite is the Hell Knight Lumark, who gets a massive glow up from his initial appearance. You'll see here it is a lovely suit of armor that is animated by some fiendish force. That is excellent. We got to again see some new art going on there. Some creatures that we threw into some of the larger interactive specials with no art because we didn't have the budget, like the Bluethorn Ravagers. They're gonna show up and get some pretty cool art. You actually get to see what the alien creature is. And then what would it be without
Aw,
some
he's
of
cute.
the right, little buddy.
And
What would it be without, I don't know, maybe some starships like one we talked about where the Jinsels like to take their gods or their demigods and basically put them on spikes on their command ship. Well, there you've got the Jinsel War God, where they took their former hero demigods and basically strung them up on the exterior of their warship. That's not horrifying.
still
at
one of the
all.
most twisted things you've ever put into
It
this
powers
game,
their
I
super
think.
weapon, and you get to fight that thing later.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. And then we got to introduce maybe some expanded back matter. Jenny mentioned the Cry Home Freehold. Well, along with that, we talk about the Jinsel Hierocracy, which is an antagonistic force. We talk about a variety of what's going on both during the adventure path, and this adventure path, Scoured Stars, is a bit different in that it's kind of the first adventure path we've done that's a historical one. Like continuity wise, it takes place when Starfinder launched, like many years ago. It's not like what we've done where we assume our adventure paths happen when we release them. This one, because the society happened a while back, we lock it in for that time period. But the back matter articles let us do some modern checkups on where things are at. Like, this character Hierarch Jarastron, who is maybe the face of the Jinsels in the modern day after the Scoured Stars and is up to no good, and maybe will play a part in second edition, which we'll talk more about later. But getting some new art in there is a big thing. Like, one of the fun things about this product was just filling it full of new art, new creatures, and just exploring different aspects of it. I'm very, very excited, as you can tell, because it's kind of my baby.
Well, none of those things were intimidating at all. Do we have any final questions, comments, concerns, things we want to share before we take a quick break?
I think my second grade photo is my favorite.
Going. All right.
It's awesome. Go buy it if you
Buy
can,
Scoured Stars.
because it's gonna sell out. You have no idea. It's a really popular book. Everybody should go get it, because you'll kick yourself if you don't get it. Scoured Stars, 100 years Scoured Stars. Okay, thanks.
All right, thanks everybody. All right, we're don't forget to keep putting those questions in the chat. We are saving them for our Q&A at the end. We are collecting them. We are gathering them. They are not going into the drift, we swear. But we are going to take a quick break before we come back and start talking about the Monster Core. Thanks all.
Evil stirs in the depths of Gallowspire. 3 heroes step forth to contain the darkness within. A legendary fighter of peerless strength and skill. A cunning rogue full of deadly surprises. And a powerful wizard wielding the fury of the elements. Together, they are destined to confront the hordes of undead and their deadly masters, again and again, attaining new heights of power and skill. But what hope have they to seal away the whispering tyrant? For surely there can be no hope of surviving Gallowspire.
You've made names for yourselves as adventurers over the years, yet now it seems adventure has found you instead. Mysterious and magical hero cards have appeared among your belongings. Where did they come from? And what of the strange powers they grant? The brass dwarf protects you from fire and other harmful effects. The empty throne overwhelms your foes with hopelessness and despair. The paladin defends you from harm and protects you from peril. And the rabbit prince lets you strike at foes with great accuracy. But be careful his advice doesn't shatter your blade. There are so many more cards out there to be found. They've been scattered across the world, so now the hunt is on. With each card you gather, your power grows. Before long, you will use this power to travel to places beyond reality itself. Yet still, the question remains, where have these cards come from? Who could have created them? And for what purpose? And what of the fiendish armies and monstrous foes who gather against you and seek the cards for themselves? You race against time, gathering these treasures before they're used against you. Will your quest lead you to legendary realms and grant the destiny you deserve? Or are you merely pawns, unwittingly serving mysterious forces who watch from afar, waiting for the right time to pluck your futures away? In the end, what chance do adventurers have against those who would steal fate itself?
Hi, I'm here with Eleanor and Logan, and we're going to be talking about Monster Core. Give me a second. I do not have Marissa's energy, and I need to pump myself up on a Friday. So while we give Thirsty and Jenny a chance to breathe and take a drink and relax before they talk about Starfinder, Monster Core is coming soon, and I know lots of you are already excited. I've seen the chat. So Logan and Eleanor, some of the monsters have been rewritten in Monster Core to better reflect their mythological backgrounds. How does that process work? Do you start with where they are and where you want them to be, or is it straight zero, or how does that process work for you guys?
Well, our first step was generally to go ask some people who know about them. Crazy thought, I know. Uh, in the case of the Monster Core, normally we would just ask them to write it for us because they know these creatures best. But the Monster Core was on a very tight deadline, so we ended up consulting writing monsters based on that consultation and then sending those monsters back to the people we consulted to say, here's what we made from what you told us. What do you think of it? That's ultimately how we retooled a lot of the monsters that are getting updated in this book.
Yeah, it's kind of like they built your car and then you did a couple laps, came in for a pit stop, and you're like, is this what it's supposed to be doing?
Okay, so obviously a lot of the hype has been around the new dragons. We've introduced them, we've seen the art, everyone loves dragons, we're fantasy fans, we love dragons. But what are some of the other classic fantasy monsters that you've retooled for Monster Core that you want more of the spotlight to shine
Well, I don't think we're ever going to beat dragons. After all, we are a spin-off of a game called Dungeons and Dragons. But we do have some new takes on monsters in our book that I think other people may find very cool. I have a list, a curated
on?
list for us, and the first one we want to talk about is the Archon. Let's see if we can get that art up there. We got any? There we go. Okay,
Yeah.
that is the Ezra. That is the New Legion Archon. You might remember them from first edition. They look a little different. When we went into second edition, we did have to ask ourselves because alignment was getting chucked. So what's the difference between an angel and an archon now? Because before it was just, well, it's an archon is an angel, but it's lawful. So once you chuck lawful out the airlock, you have to ask yourself, what is the cosmic, or what does that even mean? Do they just like super like physics? Are they scientist angels? We already have gods that like science. We don't need, so in our case, we decided to make the archons a little more biblical. After the biblically accurate angels, which are not actually in the Bible, but we call starfish fish, and they're not fish. So yeah, we went with a more primordial, old, and not necessarily comforting to humanity look to them, even though they are still creatures of righteousness and helpful. Maybe you don't want them showing up when you're trying to sleep out at night.
Yeah,
So
the Archons were kind of a whole bunch of different concepts all wrapped up together, and some of those were Paizo originals, and some of those were from the SRD. And so it's kind of like, okay, which parts of this do we keep? Do we really want to make sure stay in there? And then we kind of curated which ones we put in the book based on that. And then, as Eleanor said, it's like it's all about differentiating them from angels and other categories to make that new look for them. And they all have a really cool visual now. There's a lot of like alabaster white and gold and flames, as you saw in that last example.
do you want to talk about how they've changed rules wise? I know that this one, and I think all of them, have all around vision because of all those eyes they've got.
Yeah, I think quite a few of them do. I don't remember if it's 100% of them, but probably close. Not quite all of them. Yeah, they all have a kind of virtue that they embody, kind of the flip side of what we did with demons when we reached second edition and gave them all a vice that they had to talk about. So the Archons have that as like a very stable kind of embodiment for each of them. And some of them kind of already had that going on, and we just kind of tweaked how we presented it, and some of them got all new stuff to make that happen.
Very, very cool. Yeah, it's kind of terrifying. I mean, it's
Well,
which is I get it's supposed to be, right, but also like it's like Eleanor said, it's not super contain or pleasant for what you would consider humanity. I wouldn't want to snuggle with one.
I don't know, John. I'm hearing a lot of "be afraid" from you. It's be not afraid, John.
yeah, I'm seeing some people saying biblical boyfriend in the chat though, so I think some people need to be more afraid.
Yeah.
But the angel means messenger, and in Pathfinder now there's a reason why angels are the messengers and not archons.
Yeah.
Moving down the list, we retooled the hags. I think we've got a nice picture that should show us. Yep, there we go. That is a cuckoo hag. We don't have the same categories of hags anymore as we used to. That matched up pretty strongly to the Dungeons and Dragon hags. So we were going to move away from those. And because of the changelings in Pathfinder being the children of hags and that strong tie-in they had, we wanted to move them more into the folklore tropes where they had sort of a more motherly, not exactly motherly vibe, but there was definitely this more feeling. They're not seductresses; they're just kind of terrifying.
Yeah.
I In this particular case, the cuckoo hag is named because she will take over the form of somebody you love. She can change her shape into any feminine looking person or creature, and she will use that to try and lure you to into her lair basically and convince you to stay there forever, at which point horrible things happen to you. But all of our new hags are based more on these sort of fairy tales. I know James talked about the sweet hag in another PaizoLIVE. That one has sort of a gingerbread witch vibes to it, and of course the sea hag is still there due to the whole Little Mermaid or other fairy tales of that sort. Do you want to talk about how they have changed mechanically, Logan? They know that they still hate iron, with the exception of the
Yeah.
Iron Hag. You know, go figure.
Yeah, ironically, yes, they did get some fairly big changes. As Eleanor said, there's kind of two that kind of stuck around to some degree, but got some pretty substantial changes to fit this new theme. And then there's the two brand new ones. And honestly, it's just really nice kind of having a theme to the hags, because before it's just kind of like they have covens and they I don't know, they do stuff. They're kind of a hodgepodge. So having them kind of feel like they would actually work together for, not very good reasons, but that's kind of what you want out of your monsters, has improved them a lot. Yeah, there's some of the hallmarks we had before have kind of stayed around, like the coven ability is still there, largely how it was working before. So a lot of it is just kind of like some more kind of temptation things, like Eleanor was saying. The Cuckoo Hag is a good example, because she can make a pact with you if you agree to stay with her, and she is going to possess your soul. But there are plenty of good reasons that you want to stay in the Cuckoo Hag's lair forever and ever and ever.
Chat is having a lot of fun with this one. I personally am reminded of a particular TikTok trend at the moment. I want her to demand a lever is pulled, and I need her to yell "wrong lever." I'm just getting very specific vibes from her that work very well.
Well, we do have spells that will turn you into a llama, so. One of the next targets we had to change at least a little in the monster car would be the Rakshasa,
Yeah.
which they were very strange and interesting, and I'm not sure that they ever particularly made a lot of sense to me personally. We went out and asked Brian Yaksha as a consultant for this. They're super cool. You should follow them. But you can notice we have the Rakshasa Raja Kroda up on screen. The first thing you might notice if you are a D&D fan is his hands are not backwards. Much to the relief of our artists. That was a really awful thing to try and get right or wrong, as it may be. Um, um, so
But it's on purpose.
Yeah, in the new Monster Core, Rakshasas aren't fiends. They are spirits with the unholy trait, I believe.
Mhm.
And they exist as primordial manifestations of the concept of evil. The minute good and evil were conceived in the universe, these guys popped up. And it's not because a world without evil wouldn't be good. Like a lot of people are just like, well, you can't have good without evil. And this is true in the case, but not because a world without evil wouldn't be a great place to live. But once you have the idea of good, you theoretically have the idea that some things are not good. And once you have that idea in your head, well, what is not good? What is an action you would take that isn't good? Well, probably killing somebody and eating them. That doesn't sound very good. As soon as that happened, as soon as the thought entered the universe, Rakshasa popped into existence that kills and eats people. So in this case, the Raja Kroda is somebody who does that precisely that. They stalk mortals and eat them. And it has the head of a tiger because humans like to attribute malice to animals that are simply just being animals. There's no malice in a wild beast. They're just trying to survive. What the Raja Kroda is the manifestation of human cruelty that they like to project onto animals. That's what this thing exists as. And because we change them so much, they have a lot of interesting different abilities. They aren't quite as spellcastery, I believe, but they've got some weird little tricks. You want to talk about, Logan?
Yeah, as you might imagine, a creature that is kind of a cosmic entity representing the presence of evil. Just the easiest thing to design mechanics for. You just plug in some numbers, it's good to go. No difficulty there. Making these kind of work within our rules and convey their theme was pretty tricky. As Eleanor said, they eat people, so they do have swallow whole now. They can just eat them a fungus or whatever. One of the Raktavarna is also one of the other kind of expansions to the Rakshasa concept is also in this book. And the thing the two of them have in common is a knowledge of delusion ability, which is kind of if you try to sense motive on them, it will make you off guard because of kind of like understanding the understanding of this metaphysical concept embodied by this creature. So something that will like make both the character and the player a little confused, which could be fun to do. The Raja Krota that you saw the picture of can also kind of reassert fate as kind of like a a fundamental being and kind of turn your fortune or misfortune and just kind of say, nope, that's not a thing. I don't know why you think you can play with that. That's not possible. Haha. The tracing kind of the origins of various things that had made it into the fantasy RPG Rakshasa umbrella was really tricky, because it seems like the backwards hands were from an episode of Kolchak the Night Stalker, which is not really, not the ideal source for that kind of thing. But the inspirations for those creatures, the D&D versions of them were wild and woolly. So Eleanor did a lot of the work and bring in Brian Yaksha to kind of untangle some of this and figure out a way we could move these forward and give it a little more of its initial meaning back.
And once again, I was just gonna say, I love our artist, and that's terrifying. That might legitimately haunt my dreams tonight, and I can't blame anyone but myself for looking at it. So
You can file it as a workplace hazard. So, in the similar vein, we have the Oni, which are another. I'm not sure I entirely understood them myself personally, and they were all very associated with giants, but possessed by fiends, I believe. I'm still wrapping my head around them, but in the new Monster Core, they are spirits as well. They are basically the same as Kami, except they've sort of been corrupted. In their case, they are Kami who lost their ward. Kami and Galarian all have a ward that they want to protect. Well, these guys lost it. Either they were careless or something horrible happened, no fault of their own. You might remember in Spirited Away, spoilers for a very old movie, that Haku, the river dragon, had his river filled in, which is why he forgot his name. And he was kind of acting out a little because of that. Well, Oni are acting out a lot because of that. You could theoretically redeem them back into Kami, but they might rip your arms off first. So these Oni, they're a lot more physical. They have less spell casting and more hitting you in the face with an iron club. Do you wanna talk about what this Oni looks like now, Logan?
Yeah, the Oni, as Eleanor said, a lot less spellcasting. There is a mythological weakness that Oni typically have, which suggests you might want to carry around a pocket full of beans if you're going into Oni territory, because they do have a bean panic ability that you can take advantage of. They are also more kind of region-based rather than like having the kind of fire-themed. It's more specifically like the Caldera Oni now instead of the Fire Yai, the Snow Oni. We have the Mountain Oni, which is kind of like the base level one, and then the Island Oni. And all of them have kind of been, revised a bit to kind of fit their environments, which you'll see that a fair amount in Monster Core, partially because that's just a thing that happens a lot in mythology. There are a lot of creatures that are kind of, about the place they come from, and Oni are a really good example of that. they'll still fill a lot of the same roles as the original versions. They're just and when you're building your adventures, they're just a lot closer to the mythology that they came from.
Yeah, and of course, James Case had a lot of thoughts and ideas on how to revert them to a more mythologically accurate version. You should
Yeah.
follow him. He's super cool.
All right, so we've got one left, it looks like.
Yep, one left. In the same vein of the Rakshasa, we have the Naga, the human-faced Naga from D&D. I'm not sure where the human-faced Naga came from. It may just have been D&D specifically. We decided to revert them back to statues and other depictions of Naga from Southeast Asia and South Asia. And rather than them being aberrations, I believe. What are they now?
They are
Spirits,
beasts,
beasts.
holy
Okay.
beasts.
Yeah.
I should say the Vicharamuni is holy. The Smarnava is not holy.
Yeah. So they are, as Logan says, they are holy snakes now. They are not aberrations. They like to perform divine tasks, and that doesn't include testing would-be heroes. So even the nastiest Naga you run into is trying to do good by the universe. But you may not like that. You may not like what the universe has in store for you. The universe may tell you you are unworthy. In the case of the Smarnava, that's basically what it does. It's kind of traumatized, actually. The Smarnavas are still traumatized because their mother goddess, Ravithra, got her head chopped off after she was betrayed. That's why this one has ritually scarred his neck. He's a bit traumatized from the whole thing. And his, you can see the stuck shed skin that's just peeling off of this poor thing, milky eye caps. He's not having a good time. He's not healthy. But he still wants to do his duty. And in his mind, that's trying to test people because the concept of karma basically got ruined. The chalice that contained all the karma of the world was literally spilled and stolen. There is no more karma. This one is trying to sort people into whether they're worthy or not, and does that by screwing with you. There may be ways that a very holy person could allow this poor boy to shed his scales and turn into a different kind of Naga, but you better be very sure of yourself before you step in there and go up against this thing. So we have the Smaranava and the Vicharamuni Naga in the Monster Core, and they both have some pretty interesting abilities. If you want to talk about it, Logan.
Yeah, these are the Vicharamuni is somewhat similar in role to the Guardian Naga from Bestiary 1. The Smaranava is much more kind of a new thing. One of the most kind of fun things about them is that they have kind of a mental effect if they grip you in their coils. So rather than just like grabbing onto you with the strength of their kind of serpentine body, you have to make a will save or you're kind of captured in their coils of knowledge. They still have kind of some spells as well, and they have a lot of kind of mental abilities. So they're kind of a cool mix of a lot of different approaches to how a monster can go up against you.
Yeah, I know that the Vicharamuni has, I think, one of my favorite abilities where it can choose to negate the damage from its venom, but it can also cast any spell that it has on you, regardless of your range, if you are poisoned by it. So, something to consider when running into those guys.
Yeah.
We consulted with Xiaohan Tan with this on the Naga. You should follow him. He's super cool.
So walking complex trauma is what I'm hearing, or slithering complex trauma, as the case may be. Very, very cool. Okay.
And Eleanor Ferron worked a lot on the Archons and the Hags, so you should follow her as well.
No, don't follow me. Nobody wants
Okay.
to.
Never mind.
I was waiting for that. Any last minute things before we take our next break? That to me sounds like a no. So remember to keep punching your questions into the chat. We're still collecting them for the Q&A segment at the end, but we're gonna take our next break. And after that, Marissa, Thirsty, and Jenny are gonna be back talking about this small little indie side thing we're doing called Starfinder 2nd Edition. Thanks, everybody.
Dwarves are a people of stone, ancient as the mountain's roots
Chat
where we
is
were
having
born,
fun.
industrious as the gods who made us, strong as the metal we worked. It all changed millennia ago when our creator, Torag, shook the earth, calling us upward to a surface we had never known. A harrowing journey we remember as the quest for Sky. A journey that would have failed if not for an unlikely dwarf's leadership, Targek. He was born as the earthquake subsided. He was raised knowing only our sacred ascent. He was dismayed as doubt grew in our people, and he united us in purpose, and we made him our king, a Sky King. For centuries he ruled, building great fortresses, magnificent cities, towering monuments celebrating Torag and his people's accomplishments. And then, without fanfare, he disappeared. But his legend survived. And what dwarf doesn't dream of taking up their ancestors' arms and experiencing adventures of their own? Adventures taking them far below the surface to become foul creatures' next meal. I certainly did. And I was a fool. But what I didn't know was that this was the start of something far greater. This is a story of daredevils braving cities of malice and majesty. A story of seekers grappling with a terrible past. A story of survivors overcoming any danger the Darklands throw at them. A story of heroes discovering the Sky King's tomb.
You've made names for yourselves as adventurers over the years, yet now it seems adventure has found you instead. Mysterious and magical hero cards have appeared among your belongings. Where did they come from? And what of the strange powers they grant? The brass dwarf protects you from fire and other harmful effects. The empty throne overwhelms your foes with hopelessness and despair. The paladin defends you from harm and protects you from peril. And the rabbit prince lets you strike at foes with great accuracy. But be careful his advice doesn't shatter your blade. There are so many more cards out there to be found. They've been scattered across the world, so now the hunt is on. With each card you gather, your power grows. Before long, you will use this power to travel to places beyond reality itself. Yet still, the question remains, where have these cards come from? Who could have created them? And for what purpose? And what of the fiendish armies and monstrous foes who gather against you and seek the cards for themselves? You race against time, gathering these treasures before they're used against you. Will your quest lead you to legendary realms and grant the destiny you deserve? Or are you merely pawns, unwittingly serving mysterious forces who watch from afar, waiting for the right time to pluck your futures away? In the end, What chance do adventurers have against those who would steal fate itself?
Cool. And it sounds like we are back to talk about this little itty bitty side project we have going on called Starfinder Second Edition. What? So it sounds like I have Thurston and Jenny back to talk about some second edition questions that you, the chat, anybody might have. So what is going on over there in Starfinder 2E Design Land, Jenny?
Oh, we are just, honestly, we are working hard. For those who haven't seen it, we just put out our third field test this week, woo, which shows a little preview of 2 of our ancestries that are going to be featured in our Starfinder playtest rules. The winners of those, of course, were the Android and Vesk, and that is the little snapshots that you get so far. But yeah, honestly, I think Thirsty has a little more production stuff he might talk about, but we've just been continuing to work on it, to look at the community feedback, which has been really cool to see. So much positivity, also so many really interesting points that a lot of you are bringing up that were like, yeah, you know, that's a good point, or like, what if we did do that, and causing a lot of discussions within our team that have been really, really productive and beneficial to our process. So thank you so much, all of you who have been engaging with that. Thank you for commenting, being on the blog, talking in Discords, being here in the chat. And yes, please put your questions in chat because we're going to get to those in just a few minutes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Ooh.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, no, Jenny hit the nail on the head for all that fun stuff.
Okay, cool. So yeah, keep all of your questions in the chat. We are gathering them and collecting them. As you said, field test number 3 has been released for a total of, I believe, 48 hours now. I know we only have 48 hours of information, but what's the reaction been so far?
Pretty good so far. I think what we're seeing is, you know, a lot of different camps coming out. We have a lot of the Starfinder First Edition people who maybe aren't as familiar with like Pathfinder Second Edition's rule set and their sort of commentary on it. We've got a lot of excited Pathfinder Second Edition fans who are coming in and seeing this. The people who play both systems who are like, oh gosh, I see the magical equations. We've got a lot of really positive buzz on both the Android and the Vesk people seeing sort of our approach to it and how we're, you know, trying to keep that compatibility between games, which is really important to us, but also something where, you know, we're in the midst of analyzing, like, you know, this is a play test, this is a field to test you know, release, but the full play test is going to be where we really start digging into a lot of the commentary. Right now the field tests sort of help us gauge immediate reactions. Like if everyone hates something, well, maybe we can adjust that before the play test happens.
Back off.
Yeah, back off. Bad choice. You know, I'll talk about one of those later. One thing that we certainly you know, have been keeping an eye on is there's some feedback related to, you know, the Android, which is heavily based off of an early Pathfinder 2 ancestry that was done, and sort of seeing that feedback of, you know, an ancestry that was made earlier in Pathfinder 2's life that we've sort of come into and taken bits from, but also updating and seeing, you know, what's the reaction? What direction do fans want us to go? Do they want, you know, basically Starfinder to have Android 2.0 and have everything new, or do they want, you know, the Android to be something that is more compatible? We're seeing a lot of good discussion on that, and that's really what we want to see. Also, people really like that the Vesk is an ancestry that's just like, wow, all those ancestry feats are sure good for combat, which is something you don't see a lot in typical ancestry design, but, you know, something we wanted to explore with the Vesk, because the Vesk are a pretty combat focused ancestry for a lot of their history. So it's been fun to see some of the reactions and, you know, how people are looking at the design approach there.
Oh, cool. So speaking of the Vesk and the androids, were you surprised that those were the ones that were going to get voted for this field test? I know we had lots of options to go for.
Yes and no, I think. Yes and no, because I feel like the team, we were like, wow, really? Like, that's what they picked? Because, you know, there were some really wild ones in there. And I think we thought maybe we'd see some of that. However, it does make sense because those are 2 staples. They're baselines. They are very popular. They are, you know, not only core species or ancestries in the, you know, first edition setting, but they are just, they in some ways define like the core of what it means to be, you know, in the packed worlds, like in our core setting. So not totally surprising. And, you know, the Android allowed folks to see what we were going to do, if we were going to do anything different than PF2, how we were going to add to that, how we might, you know, shift things to work for Starfinder. Thirsty, do you have anything on that?
No, I mean, I think overall it wasn't really surprising, but also, you know, for I think some of us on the Starfinder team, a bit disappointing because we were like, "Oh, some of these like really, really out there, you know, ideas. I'm also trying to log into something because I wanted to try to pull up some of the survey data we had.
See the runners
but
up.
It's okay.
Yeah,
It's okay. I can stall
exactly.
for time because I know for a fact you might not have anything at the moment, but I know that we might have some best art we can show off.
Well, yeah,
Oh.
we're gonna get into that. Okay.
Okay.
Before
Oh,
we
did I
jump in,
jump too soon? Jump too soon? All right.
okay. So you know, I have it. I have the power. No, so we I managed to pull up some of the survey data, and the results were just really interesting. I think, you know, Android and Vesk represent some, you know, some staples in what Starfinder has, right? I think a lot of people were curious with Android because constructs, but also Android is an ancestry that does exist in Pathfinder 2nd edition. And sort of how are we approaching that? Vesk is just such a quintessential Starfinder species. It has such a huge fan base behind it. That made, you know, perfect sense. It was really interesting. For a while, there were 3 of them that, you know, with over 2,000 votes were within 1 or 2 votes of each other, like just to give you an idea. I mean, for people who are curious, because I know some of you out there are little number crunchers, but like, you know, Android had a good 25% of the vote, Vesk had 24% of the vote, and then Sheeran were 23%. So like
So
our little
close.
bug boys were so close, so
Close.
very
So close
very
to Bug Dad.
close. Yeah. Surprisingly, Human was the least popular choice.
What?
I know, right?
What about that?
Right? Yeah. Oh, shocking. But yeah, no, so that was very exciting for us. One thing that, you know, I think we can quickly reiterate here, because I saw a lot of commentary on it when we did the survey, was a lot of people were very disappointed that we didn't have Skittermander on the list. Our little furry buddies.
I think we all
That-
were disappointed.
Yeah, that would be because if we put them on the list, they would just win, and thus it wasn't really a point of having a survey. So, you know,
Well, it would have been the survey for second place then.
yeah, exactly. Which you know, then we wouldn't have had Vesk either, and it would have been androids and Skittermanders, which, you know, is a future that you can all live in, but it doesn't actually exist because you know, we are excited to announce that Skittermanders are going to be presented in the playtest rulebook. So we're going to be showing them off there, and you know, you'll be able to play them in your playtest games once that releases this summer. Oh my gosh!
What? Spoilers?
Well, we said it in the forward of the field test. It's kind of a spoiler.
I guess it's only a little spoiler.
We'll have real spoilers later. Don't worry.
I mean, okay. So has anybody been playing as Skittermander yet, like internally?
Not
How
yet.
have those internal play? Oh, so you
Not
don't?
yet.
You have
Not yet.
other internal playtest stuff ready to tell me?
Yeah, we've had a couple games. We've done some blog posts. You know, obviously over the holiday period, it's been kind of like in a rut, is, you know, getting people. To be honest, our team took a little break. We decided we would play the Alien RPG and try something different for a bit, just as our little holiday party. But our playtests are continuing on. We're actually hoping, with the new year, once everyone's back, starting next week from, you know, vacations and whatnot, we're actually hoping we can bring something maybe a bit more consistent, some more live playtests, stream playtests, where we can show off, you know, some of the stuff of where we're at internally and what's working, what's not working, all that fun stuff.
Ooh.
But right now, the book, to sort of go back to the prior question where we're at in the design land, we've kind of got all the components together. And now it's a matter of bringing all those components together into one fantabulous book. You know, Jason Bowman from the design side of the Pathfinder team came in and helped us by doing some review on the content that we have in there. So we've been going through that, getting, you know, feedback from the Pathfinder side of the house. I'm like, we tried this and it didn't work, or please, for the love of God, don't do this. And just, you know, compiling all of those notes and making sure that, you know, we're presenting the best game we can. We're sort of at the point where we're putting all of our various pieces together, getting them into a book, because it's gonna go to the printer in a few months, and then we're gonna have a big old playtest rule book for you. So the rest of the team certainly is involved with that. I'm kind of running point on the compiling, but really the rest of the team's also working on other projects that we haven't announced yet, probably for future product releases that we'll be talking about in the future, but not today.
Oh, no, not even
Not
one little
yet.
spoiler hint. Okay, that's all right.
We'll get
those
more
speaking-
spoilers later. Don't worry.
Later. That means we'll just bring you back, and you'll be stuck with me in this weird room later. Some other things besides the internal playtests and then like the field tests that have been happening is if any of our audience has been at conventions like say PAX U, we've been doing some 2E demos. Specifically, we did send Jenny to do some 2E demos at PAX U. How have those been going, Jenny?
Yeah, that was really fun. It was cool to sit down with a bunch of people, some of whom were first E players who were very, hadn't even played 2E, Pathfinder 2E, or had only played it a little bit. Also 2E players, players of other tabletop games who didn't know any Pathfinder or Starfinder. And honestly, it was just truly a fun experience and positive reactions to everything so far. And again, these are our field tests. These are like our alpha rules, kind of. There's going to be some tweaks by the time it gets into the play test. So, Thirsty is finishing right now. And then, of course, we're releasing it for all of you to mess with and give us the real feedback times. But yeah, it's been really cool. And I actually ran that as well for a couple of podcasts. One is already out. Cosmic Crit we did like a little holiday special, the Critmas special. We ran kind of a holiday themed version of the demo that we did at PAX. And there's one coming up with Adamless and No Quest for the Wicked players where I'll be running that again. So we'll have more info on Paizo socials, of course, when that happens. But if you are not going to any of these conventions and you just kind of want a sneak preview beyond the field tests, it might be a nice little thing to take a listen to.
Yeah, and we'll certainly be doing more. I know at the end of February, I'm going to be at OwlCon in Houston, where I noticed in the chat someone had mentioned it, so I'm just going to answer it now. I will be 99% luck running some Starfinder 2E demos. We're trying to run some of these. Again, they just sort of help us out calibrate things.
Mm-hmm.
We want to make sure we have some good demos ready, so we'll be running those at some events. I think Jenny, you and Mike Kimmel are one of our developers at Norwestcon, so we're going to be hitting the con circuit in some targeted ways and doing some demos there. So feel free to catch us there before the oncoming rush of next convention season, which is always around the corner.
Cool. All right. Are you now ready for me to ask Rue to show off the art?
Well, yeah, I was gonna say let's talk a little bit about ancestries just for a bit and some of where we're at because I wanted to get through all these fun questions we have, because the ancestry we have to show you first. We've certainly shown off Vesk, we've done that, but what about a Vesk with the Barai versatile heritage? Oh, that'd be cool, right? Wouldn't that be a thing? Oh, look at this.
Ooh.
Look at this fun unit right here. This necrotized specimen,
kind of undead Vesk.
Yeah. So Barai is one of the versatile heritages that you will find within the playtest rulebook that we're working on. One of two, in fact, the other being the Drift Touch Prismeni. Barai are like versatile heritages in Pathfinder 2e, they can apply to any ancestry you want. The Barai represents folks who have had a brush with death in a way that leaves them closer to death than one would like, resurrection rituals gone wrong, all that fun sort of stuff, technology run amok that keeps your corpse going, a little bit ghostly. Yeah, so you can have that, literally Too Stubborn to Die. I actually think Too Stubborn to Die is an ability that they have as well. There are some fun options in there. The other one, which was Ancestry, I was like really surprised didn't score higher, is our good friend the Barathu, who's going to be a core ancestry in our game. You can see the Barathu sniper. Look at it. Look at this little buddy. You can play that little buddy.
Just think of how stable your shots are going to be from that gun. Like, there's the recoil. Like, what's recoil when you've got all those tentacles? It's great.
And here, like, Logan is the designer in the room, isn't in here. He's just in the Zoom call with me. You can't see his face. But look, it's an ancestry that's just innately going to fly. It's going to ruin everything with a gun. Flying with a gun. Well, we can do that in our game because our game's a bit different. But look at that Barathu. Yeah, we're very excited for some of these core ancestries. One of the, I would say more disappointing parts of like Android and Vesk is that they're like, we've done some really cool stuff with Vesk and made them very unique from say Rooksy and Android. We've updated that sort of 2E mentality, but like once we get into stuff like Barathu, there we can do some just outlandish. One of their high-end ancestry feats right now just lets you like overlay another person.
Yeah, you can.
And it's just like I'm combined with them
with a person.
Yeah,
it's
like,
great.
In my head, I'm imagining something marionette-esque, but I don't think that's what you had in mind.
Oh no, like you're like you got a little gas bag buddy on, in, over, around you.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh.
exactly. Like there's some interesting stuff. And that doesn't include, some of the new ancestries like Patra that we've got. Looking at some of those fun core ancestries like Lashunta and Sheeran and all those types. We're really excited for where things are going. And this art is just some good examples of what we've got lined up.
Cool. I think we only had those couple of art pieces because we're still holding a lot of the 2E stuff close to our chests right now. But do you think I can harass y'all just a little bit for maybe one more spoiler? Just for the audience, just for us, for this Friday, going into the weekend.
Yeah, I guess. I think Jenny, you wanna tell people what maybe we could tell people what we've got in store for our next field test, say somewhere in the early March-ish time frame.
Oh gosh, sorry. You're making me pull notes, Thirsty.
Making
You can go
pull
ahead
notes.
and say it.
I know.
Thirsty.
Oh, okay. Well, all right, fine. I will say it. I tried to throw Jenny a bone,
You
but
tried.
all right, fine. Field test number 4 coming out early March. That's going to be presenting the Envoy class, levels 1 through 5, possibly a few things related to maybe skills, which is going to be very important to the Envoy as well. But you're gonna get to see the Envoy levels 1 through 5 where it's at. And it's a fun class. I think from the demos I've run, a lot of people have walked away saying, the Envoy is one of the most fun classes they've had a chance to play, and it just fits the narrative. This is a class that is going to sort of direct your party and lead by example. Those are some direct quotes maybe from what the class currently does.
Lead by example.
Literally lead by example. So, keep an eye out for that. We're going to have that coming up in the next 2 months.
Cool. All right. So we have 2 months. I mean, we just got field test 3. So I feel like they'll have a thing or two to do while we wait for the next field test to come out. Do we have any final questions, comments, concerns, feedback, shout outs to the audience we want to give before our next break?
StarfinderPlaytest.com.
www.starfinderplaytest.com.
I mean, I'm also advertising SkullCon because that's on my shirt, but also StarfinderPlaytest.com. Yay!
All right. Well, thank you for that. We are going to take one final break, so be sure to get those questions in. We're going to all get something to drink really fast, but also for you in the audience, stick around through our audience break because we do have a really cool new trailer that we are dropping with this ad roll. Thanks all.
In the nation of Shenmin, spirits and monsters stalk the depths of Spectre Wood, and ghost towns outnumber those inhabited by living souls. But this was not always the case. Over 100 years ago, the Age of Lost Omens began in Tian Sha with the collapse of the mighty Lunghua Empire, an event that left the small towns of Shenmin isolated and forced their citizens to become self-sufficient or fall to ruin. Willow Shore was one such town. Founded to support the construction of a remote mountain monastery, Willow Shore soon transitioned over to a lumber town, and like so many others, it was forced to fend for itself in the years after the Empire's fall. Not 2 years later, the records speak of a mysterious curse that fell upon the town, and while details of what took place have been lost to time, the events of Willow Shore's Season of Ghosts will now be told. The Season of Ghosts begins during the first days of summer, and is a time when the unquiet spirits of Spectre Wood grew particularly restless. The townsfolk of Willowshore celebrate this with a night of feasting on the last day of spring, but when a group of heroes wakes the day after, they find their hometown under siege. Fog shrouds the town, and the night sky shimmers under the light of a crimson moon, and monsters now stalk freely through the town's streets. While defending the monstrous invaders and lighting the town's protective eternal lantern could restore Willowshore to safety, these invaders and strange manifestations are only the beginning, as walls of ghostly shapes rise in the surrounding woods. The town of Willowshore has become cursed, and its people must band together if they are to survive the coming year and the horrific monsters they will face. Can the town's newest hero save their homes, family, and themselves? Or will the season of ghosts mean the end for them all? In the nation of
Evil stirs in the depths of Gallowspire. 3 heroes step forth to contain the darkness within. A legendary fighter of peerless strength and skill. A cunning rogue full of deadly surprises. And a powerful wizard wielding the fury of the elements. Together, they are destined to confront the hordes of undeath and their deadly masters, again and again, attaining new heights of power and skill. But what hope have they to seal away the whispering tyrant? For surely there can be no hope of surviving Gallowspire.
Woohoo!
It's just Jenny.
Jenny
Got
made
our
us all into
picture
the
in picture
room.
of Jenny.
Hi.
Oh, well, hi, everyone.
All right, so we are back for our Q&A segment, our third action of our little action reaction branding marketing. Yay, I do marketing. So we have pulled questions from the chat and we've got them in a document here in front of us. And Marissa and I are just going to take turns going back and forth and answering your questions. So we're going to do it by section. So first off, in the Scoured Stars section, well, okay. So this is the first question in the document. So let's just go ahead and ask it. Will Starfinder 2 have stamina?
Wow, in the Scoured Stars section, I like you threw me for a loop. Here, the answer is no.
No.
There. The stamina system is a thing that was great in Starfinder First Edition. We didn't feel it was really expressive for the direction we wanted to go in Starfinder Second Edition. For those of you who really adore stamina, you can get it in the old Game Mastery guide because there was a whole subsystem for PF2 in there. You could just slap that baby into your Starfinder 2 campaigns and live it that way.
That works for me. So I'm just going to move us on to the actual Scoured Stars question.
All
Is
right.
will Scoured Stars be the last adventure for Starfinder First Edition?
No, it actually won't, because there's another adventure that's coming out called Mechageddon that none of you have ever heard of before from me. Yes, so Mechageddon and the Scoured Stars will be coming out this year, and those will be kind of our grand finales for Starfinder 1.
Yeah, Mechageddon is kind of our like ridiculously high level, uses mechs AP to sort of sunset off first edition for the products where we're making. Jenny put a lot of effort into it. I had the pleasure of just reading it, and I didn't have to develop it, which was great because I just got to enjoy it. I think
always
like the
nice.
final threats is like, wow, you can fight like up to CR like 23, 24 threats because you're giant robots. It's really good.
Well, and you know, it's such a chore because we all know that Jenny can't stand anything mecha or mech related. So I'm sure that it was a big task to get to do this. Okay, scrolling down the list. Okay, so since Scoured Stars was a first edition compilation of OP scenarios, some of those you wanted to go, we've already talked about, you wanted to go back and edit and change things and kind of fix things. Was there anything that was in there that you were like, no notes, that's perfect, that's great, just pick up, drag, move, insert in book, and move on with life?
Oh, huge swaths of it. I mean, but one of the cool things about doing a project like this is that, you know, we didn't have to rewrite everything. Like there wasn't like we didn't have to go out and pay for a bunch of freelancers to write new content. We had a few sections of new content. Myself and Jenny did some, but overall it was like, yep, this worked out really well. That's the whole reason we're remastering it. So, you know, if there's like one or two sections, I think there were a couple adventures where it was like, oh yeah, this just like 100% worked perfectly. And most of the touching was really either adding content to it or doing some of what I mentioned with like adjusting levels and adjusting, you know, like the threat challenge for some of the creatures. That's where we really had to go in and fiddle with the nuts and bolts on it.
Cool. All right. So it looks like our next set of questions is going right on down to the Monster Core. If you still have questions for Scoured Stars, drop them in the chat. Let us know it's for Scoured Stars. We'll put them back on the list and get back to them. But this one is very specifically for Eleanor, and probably the most important question we are going to ask tonight. What is the name of your furry companion right now?
I don't know that he has a name. The chat is free to suggest them. He's a little tanuki. He's here to help me celebrate Tiancha. I'm taking suggestions.
Oh no.
All right, chat, you know what your job is to do tonight.
Okay, continuing with Monster Core. Just a straight up, very basic question. With Monster Core, are you consolidating from the previous bestiaries and kind of putting them into one book, or what was it basically just a swap from Bestiary 1 to Monster Core? What was the thinking design process there?
Most of the creatures in there are ones that were in Bestiary 1, because it's going to be things like lions and tigers and bears and
Oh my.
some demons and devils. There you go. But there were also like several things that we cut for various reasons. Some of them were, OGL D&D things that we didn't want to have in there. Some of them were things that weren't working quite the way we wanted, and we wanted to save them for later. So we've also pulled in a bunch of creatures from other later books. That's both the bestiaries and some from adventures and other places. I think a good example would be like the Archons we were talking about. One of those Archons appeared in the back matter of an adventure, and when we cut some inevitables, we brought one of those in, and then we kind of still remix things from there. So there's a pretty good mix. I would say if you're familiar with Bestiary 1, a lot of them are gonna look similar, but there's still gonna be a whole bunch of like new things from other books, and then a small handful of just like brand new monsters. And with those, we really wanted to kind of fulfill the roles of some of the creatures we were cutting. So like if we cut, for example, a big heap of plants, we put in the Sargassum heap, which is a kind of seaweed monster that is going to kind of slot in really well in the same places you would use the other one that isn't there anymore.
Cool. All right. So because I did ask for more Scoured Star questions, we asked, y'all delivered. For Scoured Stars, any news about the Matos, the Techians, and the last two Crayhome species without player stats?
Yeah, should check it out. They show up in there. They get some mentions in there. That's I don't want to dig too deep into it, but they're mentioned that they show up. And yeah,
And that's all he wrote.
Okay, so going back to Monster Core, is there anything else? Chat is hungry for more info about hags. So is there anything else that you can spill about the hags for no reason? Because I'm sure Chat is behaving themselves. But you know, just if there are things you would like to talk about.
I mean, we've revealed 3. I think we've revealed all 4 that are in the Monster Core: the Sea Hag, the Iron Hag, the Sweet Hag, and the Cuckoo Hag. I wanted the Sweet Hag to be named the Gumdrop Hag, but I lost the vote on that. That's all that I have to say on the matter. Logan, do you want to talk any more about what surprises hags might have in store for people?
I think we have gone over hags pretty thoroughly. I will say we did some, kind of thematic pillars through these books, kind of similar to what we did with Player Core 2, where it's like, we're going to have the Druid and the Leshy, and we kind of have all our nature stuff primarily in that book. This one, since we had changelings in here, we kind of we brought the Norn into the book as well, and so there's kind of like a lot of those kind of like mystical seer folks and triumvirates kind of make an appearance in here. So
Okay. So
semi-related topic.
We're gonna have to go over those hags again, because in my head the whole time I've been like Bird Mom, Snack Mom. I'm missing the other two. I know you said
you've
them.
got Octopus Mom, Taffy Mom, Nail Mom, and I don't know what you want to call the Cuckoo Hag.
She's been Bird Mom for me.
She's the Bird Mom. Okay.
She's been Bird Mom or Chicken Mom.
She'll put you in the bird cage and you will stay there.
All right. There have been more people have been curious about the Brass Bastion and want to know if there's going to be more monsters like that are constructs with spell resistance.
There are going to be. So we've kind of done away with the Golem category, which had a whole bunch of complicated rules associated with it. We've instead kind of broken those creatures out into individual entries. So like the Stone Bulwark is an example. And those tend to have resistance to most spells with an exception. So they don't have kind of a complicated matrix associated with them anymore. But they do have kind of, this one weird trick to get your spells around their resistances. So there's still a good reason to kind of, research ahead and figure out what you're up against and prepare your spells or bring your scrolls accordingly.
See what I did when I said that chat was behaving themselves is I unleashed karma upon myself.
I'll just go ahead and close that tab, not read it.
So Logan and Eleanor in chat would like to know which monster from Monster Core you think is the daddiest.
Sorry, the daddiest?
That's what it says.
I mean, that Oni we previewed was pretty daddy. I'm gonna go with that just so I don't have to look through the whole book.
I'll go with the Manticore. I'll go with the Manticore. I think it has the most expressive beard.
Right, and I will move us along.
Yes,
it's only going to get worse from here. It's all downhill.
We've opened up the can of worms. We did not cut it off at the pass.
No.
We did this to ourselves.
Okay, the most granddad monster is the red cat.
Yeah.
All right, so are there new monster traits to look out for as things have changed their categories to fit better with their origins?
New ones or kind of switches. Like the Rakshasa is one of the main ones that kind of did a switcheroo and stopped being a fiend. I think we've kind of talked about the main ones because it's the Oni and the Rakshasa and the Naga. Most of the other ones are a little closer to what they used to have. Eleanor, can you think of any to add to that list? There's so many monsters.
There's so many monsters. None off the top of my head. Question mark. Maybe the Bargist.
Yeah.
That changed as well. But I'm sure people can go buy the book and find out.
Okay, so next question. What are your favorite monsters coming in Monster Core? We've talked a lot about the ones that received the most changes, but is there one that kind of you worked on or is just kind of your favorite in general?
I'm a fan of the Mirage Dragon because I like purple and green. And my dad makes fun of me for liking that color combination together. But the Mirage Dragon has my back, and I appreciate it for that.
There's so many new babies in here. I think I do have a soft spot for the Bogwood, which was a first edition Pathfinder monster that's getting its second edition debut here. It can throw its larvae onto you to feed on you, and you know, who doesn't love a good family meal? It's wholesome.
This is the face I'm sticking with for that. No, I don't want to be a buffet. But it sounds like people might have a chance to make their favorite monsters because will the Monster Core have updated or new rules about creating custom creatures?
That's all in GM Core. So
Ooh.
those rules originally appeared in Game Mastery Guide, and then the new version of those is right there in GM Core. Go to your game store, pick it up today. Go to Paizo.com, get the PDF. See if your game store happens to have any of the sketch covers, which are pretty hard to find.
I've actually got to see the elusive sketch cover and hold it in my own hands for the first time the other weekend when I stopped in for some stocking stuffers at my local game store.
Nice.
That has been the downside to all of us working from home is we haven't been able to like go around the office passing around the books and looking at them.
Yeah. Yeah, I managed to find a couple copies early because they were in a stack of things for Cosmo in sales. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to take a look while I'm
Thank you.
here.
I think we lost track. We lost the plot. John, it's your turn.
It is my turn. Moving on to Starfinder 2nd Edition. I'm going to ask this. Y'all are going to respond, and we're going to move on with life because there are other questions to be asked. We have a lot of Starfinder questions.
Sweet, bring it.
Yeah.
Which Starfinder
Right.
iconic
Do
is the
this.
most daddy?
Oh,
Pescadine.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
Bug Dad,
Cascadine is pretty
obviously.
good, but I will say New Samir brings some
That's
straw.
true.
How could you say that when we don't have the art to show off?
Because I'm a bad person.
Thurston.
Growls and marketing.
And Obo is not daddy, Obo is mommy.
Gun mommy.
All
Right.
right.
Those
Trying to get us
mommy.
back on the plot. I did this. I caused
You
this
did.
problem. All right. So following up the question, lots of people had asked this question. We did parse it down. How awesome is the Technomancer going to be?
The Technomancer?
The Technomancer.
Yes. The Technomancer is going to be amazing.
The Technomancer is going to be yes.
Is going to be amazing. The Technomancer is going to be great. We'll tell you more about the Technomancer when we are able to announce things about the Technomancer. But the team feels very strongly, the Technomancer is a core part of what is Starfinder, and we will talk about it more when we're ready.
You got your answers. We're trying here.
Yeah.
Okay, so on an interesting note, is there going to be any writing to deal with the Vesk being kind of awful conqueror culture-ish, or potential ways to address that in your own kind of personal games?
So we don't have any direct plans to share right now, although we are going to, there will be more where we talk about our setting. We're not doing any like massive setting changes in Starfinder 2. There will be some updates to account for the nearly 10 years that has passed in the setting. There will also be maybe some like little polishings or remasters for various reasons, but as for Vesk, so Vesk are obviously one of our core classic, lovable, beloved, whatever you want to call them, ancestries. They also come from the Veskirium, which is an interstellar conqueror. Like they literally have people called the High Despots who are their leaders. It's not very subtle. So the thing about it though is like what we want to do is we like having nuance in the system. We like having villains. We like having villains who maybe they're villains sometimes, but maybe sometimes in the past, Pact Worlds have allied with them for some reason, like the Swarm War. It was maybe there was a reason that we chose, Pact Worlds chose not to fight this war at that time. So we want to keep that interest there, but we also want to make sure that if you don't want to have that in your game, obviously you can homebrew that. But the other thing about it is we know that people will be playing Vesk, and we don't want Vesk to get to all be seen in this light as like they are all conquerors. They are all like, bad people who want to go around and take what doesn't belong to them and oppress other people, because they're truly not. And so we definitely have been thinking and talking about that as a team as we prepare to present the new material about Vesk, about the ancestry. And even in the playtest rulebook, there is some writing that kind of deals with that and like how individual Vesks might be different than, the Vesk like culture that has historically existed, and giving other options for Vesk characters, player characters and NPCs to fit into. So that's a really good question. Thank you for asking that.
Cool. Actually, our follow-up question is, it's also kind of Vesk related, though not as like deeply lore Vesk related. It does have to do with the mechanics, and they do wonder how the 20-foot, like, I'm just going to read this out and hopefully we can do it. Vesks look fun. I do wonder how the 20-foot speed with no way to ignore reduced speed penalties like doors will play out in the long run.
It's called a jetpack.
A jetpack helps with that. I was gonna say one of the universal spells that everyone gets in Starfinder Second Edition, Cast Gun, is really effective because it lets you do stuff at range. And so whilst melee is still going to be a thing in our game, one of the things the team felt pretty confident about was that, like, in First Edition Starfinder, melee was almost too good. In many ways, it was very powerful. You just, if you got into melee, you were doing real good in Starfinder First Edition. And in Second Edition, we really want the game to be more about using cover, shooting at ranges, taking advantage of ranges, and not just like close and like 3 actions to hit. And so it's interesting because something with Vesk having that lower movement speed, but not having, as we've talked about, the dwarven adjustment of ignoring sort of changes to your speed, is something we want to test. Like, hey, maybe this is the whole thing. We're testing out stuff, right? I can tell you that there's an ancestry out there that has currently a 5-foot base speed. We'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, we'll see.
But yeah, it's something that we definitely want to test and see how it plays out. But we have our thoughts, from again play testing it and seeing how we're working at various levels. Now, is that going to encompass like some player's niche build that stacks movement debuffs and haha, the Vesk can't move? Well, we'll find out. That's part of the fun of this whole process.
Okay, moving on to the next question. So after the absence of the whole divine arcane divide being a whole situation in Starfinder 1, how do you reconcile that to the 4 PF2 style traditions moving forward into SF2?
You want to grab that one, Jenny?
Yeah, I mean, so this is something that we've seen talked about a lot. So with magical traditions, that's a game mechanic that relates to your spell lists. It doesn't necessarily even have to be how you as a GM and players like use that in your game. I mean, certainly I know in some of our minds, the idea is like, yes, this is a tradition. This is like, the wellspring of knowledge, like it's probably been passed in some sort of institution or, from person to person. But there are obviously more than one, there's more than one group out there, even in Pathfinder, who cast divine magic or who cast occult magic. So I think for this, it's just we just, I don't know, we just really think it's not as we think the benefits to compatibility just far outweigh what we would gain by keeping it that way. Whereas in Starfinder 1, it was kind of nebulous. It's like, yeah, magic doesn't really have a tradition anymore. It's just kind of magic. Spell lists are all kind of mixed up. Like you get a spell list based on your class versus based on your tradition. And that also allows us to do things like have classes that maybe, I don't know, depending on what path you pick, could have different spell lists. Like maybe you can use different spell traditions because of the way your character is flavored or is mechanically. So I feel like that's just allowing us, the reason we've done that is just allowing us to have more room with character diversity when we design.
Yep.
I realized I was muted.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Is there going to be, all right.
Yeah.
Is there going to be a way to be standing on the top deck of a ship under the stars?
I mean,
Absolutely.
you can.
Yeah,
'Cause
absolutely.
we need that dramatic ship pulling up out of the atmosphere with the one lone hero standing on top of it scene.
Yeah. If like the nuance to this question is like, will there be ways for my character to breathe in places where there is no oxygen, which I know has been on the top of many people's minds. Yes, the game from first level will have means of, people will be able to adventure in space or, vacuums and whatnot.
Will there be a way for us to have an epic final last duel for realsy this time out in the vacuum of space?
Or the Denny's parking lot. Yes.
What about the vacuum Denny's parking lot?
The Denny's on the
Asteroid
space
Denny's.
asteroid.
Yes.
There we go.
Okay. All right. So I want you to picture one of the peak science fiction dramatic scenes of all time. You just hear the voice that starts with, "Hello there." Are there going to be a way
Copyright.
to have multiple armed PCs in Starfinder 2? I was trying to go for the Jedi lightsaber thing.
Copyright.
You're right.
Oh
Be
no.
quiet. So how will you and how will that be handled is what I was trying to get at until I was derailed by reality.
Yeah, we hinted at that in the first field test a bit. Typically speaking, that's been, we've been going with in our tests, active sets of arms. So like you have like a pair of arms that you're currently using, but you can be holding stuff in your other pairs of arms. And maybe you're speccing so that like you can use all of your pairs of arms at once, or you have abilities that let you do it a couple times in a combat. The biggest thing here is looking at it from a game design balance perspective versus a narrative perspective, because they're both very different things. Certainly we want people to train into that where they have like 6 sets of arms like a Skittermander and can like use things in each of them. But from a game balance perspective, it actually creates some really weird situations where, say we wanted to create some sort of single shot nuclear missile that is based all around the fact that this gun takes like 3 actions to reload, and you have to do a setup with it and all of that sort of stuff. If you have like 3 sets of arms, you could just like have 3 of those on the go and go bang, bang, bang and win an encounter, right? So there's a game design and balance aspect to this that we're sort of threading the needle on. But we've sort of in the first field test given some hints at the direction we're going, and we're gonna have more as more content is released in the final playtest rulebook, and
we're gonna play test it. So that's
exactly
the beauty of it.
Yep.
Cool. So I assume there's going to be a lot of new Starfinder players, myself, commenter included. Do you plan to explain a bit of the lore right away, or focus on the mechanics?
So for the playtest, the focus is certainly going to be on mechanics. We will have content that will bring people into our setting in some ways. We haven't quite announced that yet, but we are certainly going to have ways for people to come into the playtest and learn a bit about the setting and learn some of the key players and whatnot. That being said, I mean, as a playtest, our focus for this is really on the mechanics side of it. The narrative we're going to be introducing, after our year-long playtest or a year after we launch our playtest. And that's where we're going to have content that's really going to be revealing what the setting is, both for people who've never seen Starfinder before and for people who maybe are coming in for the first time and want to pick stuff up. We haven't announced all of our plans yet, but Jenny's been hard at work on some stuff in that vein. We're really excited. Now that we've got a lot of the nuts and bolts sort of figured out for the game, pre-playtest, we're able to go into that narrative realm, and we're only going to have more to say about that in the coming months.
Okay, actually a question for everybody. So Logan and Eleanor can stop staring at Thirsty and Jenny as they answer questions. So one of the commenters is a newish Pathfinder 2 fan and wondering how easy it will be to use content from either system in the opposite system, if that makes any sense. Like, will you be able to pick up and play SF2 and then use things from PF2 and vice versa?
Go on, Logan. Go on.
Yeah,
No.
You're asking the wrong designer.
Everything will be 110% compatible. It's even more compatible than 100%.
Yes.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is going to kind of depend on which direction it's going, and if Starfinder is going much more ranged combat based, some of those like low level monsters that are all melee all the time might just not be good choices. But I know the Starfinder team has put a lot of effort into this question because the Pathfinder side has mostly been panicked trying to make the new core books happen. And Jason Bowman from our team has been doing most of the coordination with the Starfinder folks. So I'm going to throw that back over to them.
I guess like when we're talking about compatibility, there's two layers to it. Like there's will the rules work together? And the answer to that is what Logan said, 110%. Yes, the rules will all work together. Whether or not like the balance states of the game will be compatible, that's going to vary depending on certain elements. Logan had a great example there of like, if you have a bunch of goblins with dog slicers that are positioned 200 feet away from a party of Starfinders with guns, the goblins are going to have a bad time. Conversely, if you have like an ogre with a club in like a 15-foot hallway with a bunch of Starfinders who have tiny laser pistols, and the ogre comes in, the Starfinders might have a bad time. So there's going to be some variance and difference there. And on the Starfinder side, we refer to this as kind of like the meta states of the games being different. Another big example of this is flight. In Starfinder 2e, there's going to be a lot more easy access to flight. So like flying ancestries ancestries that just fly innately, people who have jet jump packs, all that sort of stuff. In Starfinder, that's the norm because most people are carrying guns, so if someone's in the sky, you can still shoot them. But in Pathfinder, where maybe everyone doesn't have a ranged weapon, and that barbarian really has that greatsword, someone who's flying 20 feet above the ground with a gun is going to pose a much bigger problem. So, like a lot of that cross-compatibility between the games is going to come down to like how your GM is running it, and that should be a talk. One of the things is these games are compatible so you can like pick and choose cool monsters and feats and abilities and equipment, but like when you're designing it, we're still designing these games to be very separate and independent games, but then you can mix your chocolate with your peanut butter when you want to.
Yeah, it's much easier to do the work to combine the two than it would have been before. But we are not going to make them 100% compatible and kind of tie our own hands for the two game lines.
Honestly, this is just a reminder to your barbarian that you should always have a secondary weapon in case of a ranged emergency.
Yeah, javelins are right there. I will say the Grim Reaper will be fully functional in Starfinder. You can just pull that one right over for every encounter you need.
Death in space.
I thought when it came to barbarians, though, your ranged weapon was just your closest companion. Oh, right. People are very, very interested in the Vesks, so we are going back to another Vesk question. This commenter says, some of those Vesk feats are crazy, but makes me want to take them with a non-Vesks. I understand there's a way in PF2 to take another Ancestry's feats. Will that be a thing in space? All capitals.
That compatibility thing we just talked about really applies here. Like,
Mhm.
you know, if there's a way in Pathfinder for you to get a thing, maybe you just ask your GM if you could take that option.
Okay, so I feel like this next question might be an inside job because it was asked by a certain Kitsune that we all know
Oh.
and potentially work with.
Eye.
So, Dustin just asks, what's your favorite heritage in the field pack?
This is a trick question from Dustin. 'Cause Dustin wants me to answer with one thing, but I'm gonna say my favorite heritage is the ancient android. I really like that we were able to take all the android heritages from Pathfinder 2 and bundle them into one heritage called ancient android, which then let us do, you know, unique and bespoke ones. That was something that a lot of people thought was cute and fun, but it also just helped us out when we were designing it to keep that flavor. Jenny?
Yeah, I like that Venom Thought Vesk. And I do like it's hard though. It's like you're asking for favorite children and you are on our
Yes.
team and you should know better than this,
Yes.
Dustin. Anyway, it's fine though, seriously.
He just wants us to say Vescalotl.
I know that's what he wants us to
What
say.
he wants.
I mean,
he
I
wants
do
the
like
wave-crested
Vescalotl.
Vesk.
Yeah, I do like those.
Are you just gonna drop that and not give any more context?
That's
or
the way
details?
it's been our name internally for the wave-crested, the Vescalotl.
We like
they're,
them a
they're,
lot.
they're even slower than regular Vesk.
Gosh.
All right. So, are the Starfinder 2e playtest rules gonna go to level 20? How high are the playtest rules gonna go?
20.
Yep.
Just 20? Oh,
Lightning round. Bang, 20.
20. Good. Done. Go.
Yeah, next question.
Okay, specifically for Jenny, someone asked what it was like GMing for Cosmic Crit.
It was horrible. No, I'm just kidding. It was really awesome.
Lightning round. Next question.
It was awesome. They were so fun.
All right. Oh my gosh, somebody's thing is jumping around the thing and I can't read it. All right, there we go. Get your cursor away from my text.
No.
Oh no, they're highlighting my text. I'm just gonna pick a random one. All right, so will there be augmentations? I always liked how you could turn yourself into something unrecognizable and give yourself gills or rocket feet.
Yes.
Yes. Next question.
Lightning round.
Lightning
next
round.
I mean, if we're just picking random questions now, we've actually answered most of them. But okay, so here's a good one. How has the remaster for PF2, another little side project that absolutely no one spent stress, anxiety, and blood, sweat, and tears on,
Done in a
affected?
weekend.
Certainly
Yeah,
no one
well,
in this room.
No, not at all. How did that affect the planning design loop for Starfinder 2?
Well, some of us actually got the opportunity to work with the design team with Rules and Lore on parts of the remaster. So it was kind of fun because it all kind of folded together. You know, Dustin and I did a little help, got some training, got some feedback from Rules and Lore. Then we were able to come back and start working on our preliminary work for like some of that. So it really has kind of been like a feedback loop of we're already planning this, we've already got this going. Oh nope, we got to take this into overdrive, and I guess we'll let these things kind of work together and inform one another. So it's definitely affected the process for sure. I will say though that with our wonderful compatibility, we don't have to spend time converting Pathfinder things to Starfinder in our books. So Pathfinder stuff can be super cool and stand on its own, and you can just use it in your game if you want, if your GM allows, or if you're the GM and you roll that way and you want to do that. And we can focus on 100%, Starfinder things. So in some ways, it definitely has affected us, our plans, and our work. And in other ways, it is, it is something that we are aware of, and we also, can kind of have gone our own way on some other things. So it's, yes and no, it has affected us.
Next question.
It affects everyone though.
All right. I still see questions coming in, but we are getting really close to the top of the hour. So while we appreciate all of you interacting with us and sending in your questions, we are going to cut it off there and give our amazing guests times to introduce themselves, tell us what they're working on, where we can find them. Thurston, you can go last because we all know what you're talking about. So looking at the screen, looking at the PaizoLIVE screen and not at my Zoom screen, because those are in two very different orders. And we're going to put our community first. Eleanor, where can we find you social media wise? What are you working on? What do you want to show off?
Do not find me. I do not exist. And if you see me, no, you didn't. I'm working on copy fitting the Tian Sha character guide right now so that we can send that off to the printer and see it published next year. I hope you all enjoy it.
This year.
This year. Even closer than we think.
Listen, time is fake.
I'm just proud of myself for putting 2024 on the first blog of the year and not 2023, so I feel it. All right, Logan, what are you doing? Who are you? Where can we find you?
So I'm Logan Bonner. I'm the Pathfinder lead designer. You can find me occasionally on Twitter or Blue Sky at Logan Bonner. I just recently kind of put most of my work on Player Core 2 to bed, and that's moving on to its next stages. And I'm currently working primarily on a book that is not yet announced. Yeah, keeping the far future stuff turning.
Keeping it under hat, keeping it surprises, keeping the hype up for everybody in the community, letting them know what's happening. John, you are technically the next on the PaizoLIVE screen.
Okay, sure. Why not? I'm sticking around. I'm John Morgantini. I am the community and social media manager for Paizo, which basically means they pay me to be snarky on the internet. I am mostly on Blue Sky these days at Loremaster John, Jon. I am also on Twitter at jmorgantini if you really want to find me there, but we're not commenting on what that particular platform is doing. So I'm not on there quite so often. But I have written for recent Paizo stuff, but I cannot remember if the author lists have been announced yet, so I'm going to keep my lips shut because I like my job. And just say that you can find me online and interact with me and send emails to like community and stuff, and I answer back. It's a fun job. I do it a lot.
Cool. Because technically and officially I'm also next in the list, I'll guess I will toot my own horn. I'm Marissa Marie. I'm Paizo's web content manager. On all the social media, you can find me at Marissa Marie, exactly the way it's spelled, no spaces. I do all things on the internet for Paizo. Perhaps some writing for some things that have also yet to be announced. And because I told Thurston he's going last because he talks so quickly and he knows what he wants to say, I'm just going to skip right to Jenny.
Hi, I'm Jenny Jarzabski. I am the senior developer of Starfinder. You can find me around the infosphere at Space Princess J. I am working on Starfinder 2nd edition. Mechageddon's done. That baby's off to the printer, so I'm not working on that anymore. I'm just trying to contain my own anticipation. And I'm working on a ton of things I can't talk about either. So sorry about that. Maybe at a later PaizoLIVE, I'll be able to elaborate a little bit more.
Okay, and last and certainly